we are running. But we don't, most of us don't go to the garage, we don't go to hospitals. The human garage is called hospital, if you didn't know. And most of us don't stop at the garage, and we can leave 70 years. Think about the car. I mean, a car, 5,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers, that's it. It has to go to the garage to replace lots of this. And 50,000 kilometers, 100,000 kilometers, it's dead. I mean, 200,000 kilometers, forget about the car. And that's it. In our lifetime, we are exchanging numerous cars. So think about the complexity. So the ubiquitin system is probably one of the best mechanics that God or evolution ever created, because it's a mechanic that works online. It sees something and repairs it. It doesn't wait for 5,000 kilometers. There is a hit of the DNA, it's being repaired. The hit, it's being repaired. The hit, it's being repaired. So think about every cell that gets 1 million hits per day. How many minutes we have per day? 16 times 24. It's what? 1440. 1,440 minutes a day. Then make it by, let's multiply it by seconds. Let's don't go beyond seconds. Let's multiply it by 60 seconds. So it's 60,000, about 100,000 seconds a day we have. 100,000 seconds a day. So every cell, if every cell gets 1 million hits per day, every cell gets 10 hits per second. 10 hits on the DNA per second. The DNA is broken or mutated of every cell 10 times per second. I never made this calculation. I made it now the first time, just out of pulling the data. So think about it, how efficient the ubiquitin system and other cleaning systems have to be in order to prevent mutations that will cause cancer or that will cause death, birth defects and malformations in babies, and so on and so forth. So I don't study it in particular, but since you mentioned the DNA repair, I just wanted to make the distinction. The DNA repair is damage repair. And what we were talking is kind of damage repair and manipulating it. So it's a little bit two different aspects.
To ask a slightly pessimistic question. With the human race continuing to evolve naturally, but we also have problems like the ozone layer being depleted, disappearing. We have increased UV radiation. Do you think it will ever be necessary to use the human genome and the advances in technology that are being made to manipulate the human genome to save the human race, to take control of our evolution?
Wow, this is a really difficult one. I think that if I had to rephrase the question is whether it will be necessary one day, because we see it in the happening. Actually, it's in the last 50 years, or the 100 years, not more, that we are really destroying the planet in an unbelievable way. I mean, so in the 19th century, life were very primitive. Babies were dying. Every second baby was dying during birth. There were infections, which limited the size of the population. The population wasn't that big, because people just died at an early age from simple. And then we developed technologies and so on, and as you mentioned, we consume with thinning the ozone layer, and we are contaminating the atmosphere, and we are consuming all the food resources, and we are finishing the oil, the fossil oil that was generated for millions of years. The fossil oil, we are just consuming it by turning on our cars, and we are looking for alternative energy sources. Let me rephrase the question in a much more maybe abrupt way. Will a point come that we'll have to willingly stop development? Just to say, no, we don't want any more new technologies. We don't want to explore the space. We don't want to develop more cars. We shall shut down General Motors, Ford, well, they shut on their own. And Toyota, we will not do it anymore in order to rescue ourselves. I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult. It's hard for me to see that people will say, let's stop engineers from going to schools and learn, because we don't want engineers to make any more inventions. We don't want anybody to develop more computers and more knowledge and more this, because not only that, but think about it. It's not only that we are destroying the world. If you go lower a little bit, you think about the main problem that Barack Obama now faces, and that's the health reform in the United States. The technologies are becoming so expensive that they are becoming useless for most of the people. Most people don't have access to these technologies. You know, medicine has become, you know, the CAT scan and the MRI, and now more and more technologies are being told that countries cannot carry it on. The United States is now spending 18% of its budget on healthcare, and President Obama understands that this is the limit that they can go, otherwise the country will collapse. Normally, a country, an OECD country, I would say, in the EU, the expenditure is 8%, but 8% is not sufficient. Because in Israel, for example, we are limiting the access to technologies by limiting the number of machines. So willingly and knowingly, the government of Israel will limit the number of MRI machines. So people will have to queue. So some of those that are in queue say, hell with it, I don't want to stand in line. Have the cancer develop, I don't know, I just forget about it. I don't want to be in the queue for it. But willingly, the government, in order to limit the expenses, because the more people will go to MRI, and the more people will go to scanning, and the more people will go to screening, the more will be loaded on the insurance company. And nobody has even the capacity to monitor the mass screening versus the prevention. Because on the other hand, the mass screening has also a preventive effect. So it's better to prevent a cancer in the breast than to treat a cancer in the breast. Obviously, because the woman that has the cancer will be a huge burden. But the problem is whether it's better to treat one woman than to prevent it from another 10. What will be more cost effective? You know, governments are cruel. The governments are not charity organizations. They are businesses that run people in the way, or these are people that run people. So the question will be, shall we limit development of MRIs or new technologies? And if we have the technology, shall we limit the entry of the technology into the country? Because it's going to burden the economy to such an extent that we won't be able to carry it, or only the rich people will have access to it and the rest will forget about it. It's a very interesting question, I must admit. And I think that society, even very advanced society, is not still in a point in even to develop tools to start discussing it. Because you need to have tools on the table to even start discussing it. You know, what are the limits of science and technology that will bring the world to a tilting point that if we progress beyond it, we are going to destroy ourselves, we are going to an irreversible destruction route. So we are trying to do all kinds of things. We are trying to be greener, we are trying to develop to be fuel savers, we are trying to be energy savers, we are trying to do all kinds of things more in a local way, but I think that this movement gains momentum, and all that in an aim to balance the damage versus the efficiency and versus the benefits. We are not there yet, and obviously your question draws it to the extreme. Shall we close universities that there will be no more engineers to develop more technologies? Shall we limit the number of modern technologies and so on and so forth? I think that this question may float in a more abrupt way once the damage to the environment will be so that we shall start either to starve or to fall sick to new diseases that will come or whatever. We are not there yet, but I think that this type of a question should certainly be in the horizon. It's a very interesting one.
A previous question was already asked about how your research specifically applies to the development of drugs against many diseases, but you've explained that that targets the human genome. Could the process of the ubiquitin-mediated protein preservation be modified and applied in humans to essentially reverse the growth of a tumor, per se, because it would be an overgrowth of cells, and could the process, the degradation process, be modified to basically reverse it and kill the cells instead?
Yeah, the question is again related to my own work. I have my own view of science, and my own view of science that it shouldn't be directed. So I'm not researching diseases. I'm researching what I'm curious. And these are very basic cellular processes, regulation of transcription and apoptosis. The matter of the fact is that our science was taken by others and was applied. And cancer, it was applied heavily to cancer. And you mentioned, I think, in your introduction, a drug that is already in the market, a very successful drug. It sells for more than $1.5 billion a year, made by Johnson & Johnson and Millennium. We have nothing to do with the drug. We didn't develop it, and intentionally so, because we wanted to just study nature, and I didn't want to subvert my studies into any money coming from pharma companies and so on. I wanted to follow my imagination, and I still hold to it. So I don't do any applied research in my lab. We are doing only, it's not theoretical, people are doing experiments, but we are unraveling very basic biological processes that have relevance to cancer, but in remote. It's not, you know, when people are asking what I do, I said I'm studying cancer, but it's a joke. I really don't study cancer. We are using cancer model in order to study basic biological processes, because I'm curious about biology. I'm curious about what I see around me and how things are regulated. Regulation is the key word. I mean, for me, how everything is regulated. Think about yourself. Think about your fingers. Think about your height, your size, your weight, your proportion. Why is it that we are not double the width or double the height? Why is it that we reached an optimal? I mean, how the size? I mean, it's all about regulation. Why our heart pumps 60 times a minute and not 120? Why is it that it's only 50 millimeters? How saturation of oxygen? Everything around you in biology is regulated. You never think about it, but it's all regulated. Why is it that we don't have, that the fingers are not that long? Why they are optimally so to perform all the tasks? Why they don't grow? What limits it? What limits this finger to 10 centimeters? So I'm very curious about regulation. Regulation is the thing that in life that drives me, and always I will look for something that is regulated, and the ubiquitin system is tightly regulated, but it's tightly linked to pathogenesis, to generation of many cancers, not only one, breast, prostate, and there is a drug against one type of leukemia that is called multiple myeloma that was mentioned. There are many new drugs that are being developed. I'm consulting companies. Yes, I'm on scientific advisory board of companies, but I'm not doing it myself. And the reason is not only curiosity, but it's also educational. You want to educate the new generation. So when the students are coming to the lab, you know, once you are doing drug development, you're already in a secretive environment, because the company is afraid that secrets will leak out, and they don't want the enemies, the competitor, to know, and it disseminates not a good atmosphere of communication and discussions in the laboratory. And otherwise, you know, I have an open environment in the lab. Graduate students, physicians are coming, discussing. Everything is open. There are no secrets. And I'm always afraid that whenever commercial money will come in, it will stop the spirit of free science. So for myself, I'm not doing anything that has to do with any diseases, because this will bring in what I call applied directed money into the laboratory, which I decided in principle not to have even a penny. And I'm just that. But yes, the system is heavily applied, pharma companies are in, and so on and so forth. If you save on the applause, you'll have time for more questions.
You mentioned earlier that using the human genome, you could, once you've isolated the genes, you